Chip Northup. I assumed Scientologists were at their roots atheistic, with no deity as an eternal first causer type being. What is the Church's stance or teachings on a supreme being? Is it a don't ask, don't tell, what your God view is, or is there a codified teaching? As mentioned, I thought the roots were atheistic, but I saw on Oprah her asking Tom Cruise if he believed in God, and he boldly said, yes, of course I do. I guess the second part of the question would be, what did Tom mean when he said he believes in God? Was that a fair game thing where you can say anything for the sake of PR? Scientologists are not atheists. And Hubbard talks about the concept of God or an eternal figure or a big being and this sort of thing. He poo-poos the Christian God quite heavily, and there's definitely no doubt that you are not expected as a Scientologist to believe in some, white-haired, bearded guy on a throne sitting up in heaven who's going to promise you eternal salvation through accepting Jesus Christ as your personal savior or something. All of that is definitely not Scientology, and you will be disabused of those ideas as a Scientologist if you go in there and listen to Hubbard's lectures and whatnot. But the idea of a supreme being or a prime mover unmoved or an initial creator is still very much a potential reality for Scientologists. No, it's not addressed in Scientology where we came from as spiritual beings. It's acknowledged, or it's part of the dogma of Scientology that that we are spiritual beings and that we are not our flesh, right? And that we will live over and over and over again by taking on new and new bodies. But at some point in the past, maybe a near infinite amount of time in the past, there must have been a point where there were no thetans, where there were no spiritual entities, and they came from somewhere. Whether that was coming from the brain or id of some deity figure, or whether it was some bigger thetan splitting into all kinds of little parts or something. I mean, we used to have kind of conversations about this stuff when I first got into Scientology, and you're getting all into the philosophy of it, and you have these heady conversations amongst yourselves, amongst Scientologists, about this stuff. But Hubbard never addresses it anywhere, at least nowhere that I've seen, and I've looked for it. And so it's kind of just a big question mark. And the only thing Hubbard ever said definitive about it is you will come to understand the God dynamic, or the infinity, or God. You will come to understand that once you have attained spiritual awareness on the path all the way up to the God level. In other words, without getting all technical, life is split up into 8 parts in Scientology, from you to family to groups to mankind, life forms, the physical universe, spirits, and then God. So you can see it's a concentric circle outward from yourself all the way to infinity. And Hubbard said that once you've achieved awareness on those first 7 of what he called the dynamics, you will then, and only then, be able to achieve awareness of and true understanding of the 8th dynamic, which is the biggest, write-off, no answer that he could have given on the subject, because I don't think he wanted to really make up any answers about that for whatever reason. And so he just sort of brushed it off and said, yeah, you'll get there when you get there. And that's Scientologists' view on God.